Okay, so I think we can start. If people will join, I will let them in. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the monthly Cafe Talk in September. Thank you for joining us after the summer holidays. I hope you all enjoy it, and I hope you'll enjoy also today the Cafe Talk and your coffee, yeah? Not only the talk, but also the coffee. So what's on the menu today? Let me see if I can move my slides. Yeah, so the coffee of the day will be given today by Martijntje Vallebregt. I think I've pronounced it as good as I could. So she will talk about food waste in business catering and banqueting. And then, of course, we will have the testing notes. So it's your possibility to ask a question to our speaker today. And we will ask to give a tip to us by answering a very short Slido. And in the end, I will present the next month's specialty, which is a surprise for you. So with this, I will stop my screen and I will invite Martijntje to share the screen and start with the coffee of today. You are muted, so you need to turn on your mic.
Thank you. Hopefully you can see the screen.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yes, my name is Martijntje Vallebregt and I'm working as a researcher in the Institute of Wageningen Food and Bio-Based Research. And together with other institutes and departments of the university, we are Wageningen University and Research. So we are working on a wide variety of topics, and one of them is increasing sustainability in food chains. And an important topic in that is reduction of food waste. And we are doing several kind of activities on that, and one of that is also food waste monitoring and registration. And that is on the table of today's talk, and specifically about food waste in business catering and in banqueting. So regarding food loss and waste monitoring in the Netherlands, we are looking in the entire supply chain. So all the way from farmers, growers to consumption, either in households or in out of home. We are employing different methodologies to obtain data in all the different chain links here as listed below. Next to that, so looking at chain link specifics, we are also using national statistics on waste management and on feed to generate the overall picture for the Netherlands. So within the sectors, we are working more and more with sector-specific monitoring, even on subsector level if required. And we have set this up to create engagement of all the stakeholders in the food system on food loss and waste reduction, because in order to really come to reductions, you have to cooperate with your partners in the chain, but also with your colleagues there actually. So we are looking at ways how to monitor food loss and waste by individual companies, by looking at their own operations, covering all the steps that they take from intake all the way to distribution and processing and so on, but also in cooperation with their chain partners and with their colleagues by making sector-specific benchmarks which companies can compare themselves. So we are also supporting companies in KPI development, and we aim and develop harmonized specific monitoring templates so that everybody is using similar definitions and the data is comparable and can also be aggregated to benchmarks. I'm not doing this alone, also not only as a scientist team, but we are working very closely with the association Food Waste Free United, and you can find much more information under the link here from this slide. So food loss and food waste monitoring in out of home. Well, in the Netherlands, approximately 15% of the Dutch food intake is consumed out of home. And the rest is then in the households themselves. Regarding out of home practices, as you all know here, being here today, is that it's very diverse. So there are lots of different kinds of subsectors and even subsectors and different types of operations, different types of customers, different way of presenting food to the clients, etc. So it's very challenging to get reliable data that's actually saying something on major parts of out-of-home food consumption. So in the Netherlands, we have achieved some prioritization. So looking at restaurants and also including hotel restaurants and also at company catering as being important parts of this sector in turnover-wise, and for which we also think that having reliable data and methods is achievable. The orange sectors indicated here, like the food, like the fast service sector, for instance, or institutional catering and fuel stations, we would actually also like to include them, but we are not there yet. So if we look more specifically in what we are actually talking about in business catering, there are of course different operations, and for each operation you can have food loss and waste. So starting at the beginning, more or less, at the stock management, there can be spoiled products or overdate products. In preparations in the kitchen, so we are looking at cuttings and overproduction. On the part of display, so at the buffets, etc., where the products are offered to the clients, where you can choose your food products. There can be unsold products that cannot be placed back into the inventory or be used at another moment or the next day. And they can be either served as individual items or in bowls, trays, bottles, etc. Then you have to do with the end of pipeline particularity, so to say. So there can be plate waste, all leftovers from customers, and there can also be leftovers from banqueting at lunch meetings or drinks or other aspects. So focusing on food waste, it incorporates the inedible and the edible parts of all the food materials that are in scope in these kind of operations, and whether or not it's actually a loss or a waste will depend on the destination. In the Netherlands, we follow the definitions that are set up for food waste according to the European Union. So you also have to look at the destination of the waste to decide whether or not it's really waste, food waste. So regarding the monitoring of display waste in business restaurants, so this display waste is only part of the entire operation if you look at business restaurants. And display waste is then all the food that has been placed into the cabinets, displays, trays, etc., but is not sold to the customer and must be discarded. We monitored this together in cooperation with the Industry Federation Venica in the Netherlands and additional companies that were not a member of this. 8 to 9 companies have participated in our data acquisition process, and we obtained specific data from them. So we focused on the cash desk registrations or weighing registration if they have a system for that in place of unsold products. Specifically looking at business catering for offices, staff, and production locations, including factories, etc. These cash desk registration or weighing registrations were obtained per day. We also got transactions per day, so number of guests or clients. And we have, over the past couple of years, worked with 2 data sets. So one in 2022-23 and one in 23 and 24. Overall, more than 1,000 locations were, even 1,500 were involved in these data sets with millions of transactions. Of course, this data needs to be processed, and one of the big challenges was converting to kilograms, because in general, these registrations, if there's no weighing system in place, which is the case for the majority of the companies, there's only like economic data or data regarding number of items, etc. available. So this needs to be converted to kilograms. We did that as researchers and we validated this with the companies. Also, we divided all different types of products that they were actually having into product groups. And then we analyzed this data on food waste per transaction or per guest. And we also looked at the share of the product groups inside the discarded food. Going towards the results, I'm presenting here the results for a location. So for an individual restaurant here. You can take averaging and do aggregation on this kind of data in different ways. But we decided and discussed with the companies that actually having the results per location gives them the most valuable information in terms of being able to do own investigations on comparison location, finding strategies, and well, these kind of aspects. So on average, we found 22 grams of food and beverages are wasted per guest on the first data set and 21 on the second data set. So the difference is rather small. This is, of course, a very small number, 22 grams. It sounds very small, but if you add it all up for all the millions of transactions that are taking place, of course, you get a different picture on the entire volume. It would have been nice if we would have been able to compare this amount of waste with what is being offered. However, this kind of data is currently not yet available. As said, the display waste is only part of the entire operation, and we can say that it's approximately 1/3 of the total food waste in company catering restaurants as found by other studies. We did not find a correlation between the size of the location and the food waste unless you talk about very small and large locations. The pie chart on the right-hand side gives the distribution of the different food groups presented in the food waste. So a very large chunk is in the Netherlands. Food business catering is seen in bread and related sandwiches and related products. Also, meals and snacks have a very big share. What is interesting to note that compared to a previous Dutch study, which was more than 10 years ago, the share of salad and soup has been reduced significantly in the entire food waste volume. Another aspect in business catering that we looked at were the banqueting leftovers. So this is all the food products that are not consumed during an event, such as meeting lunches, breaks, drinks, coffee, celebrations, etc. For this, typically, there is not any data available, not in automated systems at least. So here we did an exercise in which we provided the companies with a data form on which delivered and leftover food products were scored. So how many sandwiches were offered, how many drinks, how many soups, how many snacks, fruits, etc. And they could also supplement it with relevant other products. And so the attendants at the event were asked, or one of them, to do this scoring. And next to that, we also obtained information about the number of attendees at each event. So with this exercise, we obtained data from more than 500 events at different locations and covering approximately 7,000 guests in total. So this data was also converted to kilograms with average weight of products, for instance, an average weight for typical fruit or for a typical sandwich and so on. And we assigned it to the product groups. Here we also analyzed the food waste per guest, and we looked at the share of the product groups. Moving to the results. So in case of lunches, approximately 127 grams per guest was left over directly after the event. And a large part of that consists of bread or bread with a topping. And 1/3 of the leftovers are actually beverages. If we look at coffee, tea, breaks, these kinds of events, and then approximately 180 gram per guest remained after the event, of which a very big share of the beverage of which of the beverages a very big share is left over. You can argue whether or not beverages or drinks or liquids in general can be considered food waste, but still this is a major inefficiency. Other types of events like drinks, so with snacks, with small snacks, etc. More than 330 gram was left over as a guest. So the pictures here indicate just a small illustration of what the remaining volume or the remaining quantity per guest would look like. So in case of a lunch, it can be a small sandwich with a small drink. In case of coffee and tea, it's like 1.5 cups of coffee and a cookie, etc. Looking at the different product groups, we can also zoom in. So with the lunches, we are seeing that approximately 22% of the total serving is left over, and that consists for half of it of bread, broodjes, and similar product like wraps and so on. 1/3 are the drinks, and then approximately 10% are fruits, and then 5% remaining products. So similar analysis can be done for the other types of events, and this provides the companies with more insight about what is actually being left over, and they can then investigate, hey, maybe we should do some changes here, maybe we should adapt our menus or the offerings, etc. So next steps in these two sectors are multiple. Regarding display waste, the companies are looking into interventions that they can do themselves, and for that they receive individual feedback from our analysis. And we are working on looking, can we not only look at the number of transactions, but can we also relate the waste to the amount of incoming material, so to the purchase volumes. And we aim to continue this monitoring of this display waste and possibly also extension to kitchen waste, but we are not completely sure yet how to do that. On banqueting waste currently, several companies are testing interventions. We have made a list of possible interventions, and they can choose some interventions to run in their own locations, and we expect the data in the coming months from these interventions. So if you want to know more about what we have been doing specifically on these two topics, or if you want to know more about how we do measuring and monitoring, feel free to look at these links here, and also feel free to contact me with any of further questionings that you would have. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. The same. This was very interesting, and these are quite unique data, I will say, because it's very difficult to get them. So to collect all this data, it's not an easy task, I would say. So now it's time for questions. So if someone from the audience wants to ask a question, okay, Paola, you raise your hand, so please, you can start, and the others can also write in the chat if they don't feel like speaking.
Hi, thank you so much, Martijntje. I'm sorry, my Dutch is not so good. Very, very interesting presentation, and very impressive research that you have done with an impressive number of participants as well. So well done for that. I have two questions. First, it's one that is more theoretical almost. You mentioned that it depends. When you were talking about food loss and food waste, you said that it depended on the destination. So I was wondering if you can go a little bit more in depth into that and explain what you mean by that, to make the clear distinction. And my second question, you mentioned when you were talking on display waste, I understand that this is like the meal that you show the guests, right? So that they know what they're going to eat. And you mentioned the KPIs or the parameters you were looking at were guest registration and transactions. So I wanted to understand the difference between those two. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your questions. Regarding the first question, food loss and waste, we are usually using these terms like that. So you can speak about losses of food materials, and we usually we have a specific Dutch word for that. But the goal is, of course, to reduce the food waste. And if lost food material is having a higher valued application, such as conversion to biomaterial or conversion to human use or use as feed for animals, then it's not considered food waste according to the European definition. Often also food loss is a general term that's more used for the production part of the chain, whereas food waste is more towards the end of the chain, distribution and consumption. So of course it's perfectly fine to use a terminology like that. It's just important to be clear about the definitions. But in the Netherlands, we have a separate word for food that is lost, but is not food waste. So I'm sorry if that has maybe confused you a bit.
No, that's very interesting because, as you say, it has to do both with the origin, like production usually is considered lost, and there's maybe serving is more waste. But you also are using these two terms, which is the first time I hear this, and I think it's very interesting. So maybe I'm from Norway, and we also have the word matsvinn and matavfall. I don't know if this is kind of similar, maybe, but it's very interesting that. So you can't have food waste, but then if it's used for energy production, for example, then you don't consider it food waste. Is that correct?
Energy production, like digestion, is considered food waste. It is, yes. But if you would bring it to animal feed, then it's not food waste according to the European definition.
Okay.
We tend to still monitor it because we in general consider it still an inefficiency, because originally you did not intend it to be for feed. So regarding your second question, actually the transactions and the number of guests, they are the same.
Okay.
Although you can also have guests in your restaurants that are not purchasing anything. So the transaction is a more correct term because we use the cash desk information that has these transaction numbers on it.
Right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. We have also Jorge and Margarita who raised the hand, but we need to go to the Slido. So please write your question in the chat if possible, and Martijntje can answer there, or if we have time in the end, we will answer. Because now I want to go to the Slido, and I will ask you to take your phone and to share the code that you see on the screen to join the Slido, or scan the QR code. I think it's easier to scan the QR code. And the code, you will see it on the screen during all the questions. So the first question is, describe in a word your take-home message. And I will wait. We have... Okay, I can see this now. So your take-home message from the presentation of today. Okay, people are starting to write. This is good. We have 2 answers, but we need a bit more. Yeah, it should be less food on events. Okay. Okay, 3 answers, more people to write. Okay, we have 5. I will wait 1 more minute. Maybe someone wants to write 6. Yeah, it's very complex and difficult to measure. Okay. Let's see if someone else is typing. Don't see. Okay, then I will go to the next question. Is how do you rate the monthly Cafe Talk, the 2nd edition so far? So we are in the 2nd edition and we have only some monthly Cafe Talks left because the Wasteless project is closing to its end. 8. Okay, so we have 8 answers. So this was it with the Slido. Thank you very much for your contribution. And I would like to announce the next monthly Cafe Talk, which is an extra edition in September. So next week, we'd like to invite you again for a monthly Cafe Talk. We had a special request from our colleagues from the Chorizo project. They want to present their food loss and waste rapid appraisal tool. So Matteo Vituari from Bologna will give a presentation on that next week on September 19. So please follow us to register to the monthly Cafe Talk. And with this, I stop. We still have 2 minutes, and we have a question in the chat from Kohe. So, are people aware that wasted beverages and food waste? Is there a campaign in Netherlands about reducing beverage waste? By the way, is the word in Dutch that is between food waste and not food waste? So,
Thank you for your question. Well, I don't think there's yet consensus that if beverages are food waste.
I see.
I have to say that what is written in the European regulation is not so clear on that. So we are struggling with that a bit. What we are doing as being the party that is mostly responsible also to generate the national statistics, whenever it's possible, we take it into account, but we make sure we are able to separate it.
Mm.
And then if we report it, we very clearly state that it's with or without beverages. That's, I think, the best that we can do. Yeah.
Right.
And regarding the Dutch term, so
Yeah.
the general term in the Netherlands for food waste is voedselverspilling.
Mm.
But the term, if you have not decided whether or not it's a loss or waste, so to say, we use voedselverliezen.
Verlesen.
Yeah.
okay. Good.
Okay,
Yes, thank you very much. This
Yeah,
was
it's
very
always a
interesting.
problem how
Margarita.
to name the thing in between, so it's good to know.
Okay,
thanks.
Margarita, very fast.
Very, very fast. Just a comment that in the definition of food, beverages are included. The definition
Yes.
of food. So I
So
would
it's
say that they are included. Not in the food waste management, I would say, but in the definition of food. Beverages are included, including water. So definitely yes. My question was just a quick question that if the catering companies made something regarding that, the comment I made was less food in events. Is it possible to convince the catering companies to give less food, give in a comma, in those events? Because in Portugal, when we do events, when we ask for a catering, they always bring, I would say, I ask for 100 people, they bring it to 2,000, so to 200. So it's a very, very big amount. And what to do with that? Usually what we do, we give it to those companies that give food to people less fortunate, that it is closed. The ones that we touched, obviously, won't go. That's the only question, if they are aware of that amount of food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point. That is really a bit of an interplay between the catering company and their customer. So who they are catering for. I think it's definitely worth that catering companies review their menus every now and then. And they also adjust it perhaps to the type of event. So is it a sitting event? Is it walking? Is it actually really during a meeting, or is it more separate from the meeting? So because this will all influence how much people are actually eating,
Yeah.
including the participants of the meeting, right? What kind of people are they? There are differences between the amount of food females might eat and males, for
exactly.
instance. So there are many of these factors. On the other hand, there are also expectations from customers. So you want to make sure that it's enough, for instance, right? So sometimes we also hear, yes, but the client is actually asking us to at least provide so many desserts, but we actually know that more than 1/3 will remain, but still they want us to put it out there. So that's a bit of an interplay. And by generating this kind of data, we also hope to contribute to these discussions because it makes it much more objectively.
Yeah,
and that's also why I give the companies individual feedback that they can use in discussions, etc.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much to everyone. We are 3 minutes over time. Thank you very much for joining us today and for the nice presentation. And we hope to see you in the next monthly Café Talk next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.